This is HFY Vanguard, where human resolve turns defeat into destiny, and destiny begins now. The air on Nexus Station always carried a metallic tang, a cocktail of ozone recycled oxygen, and the faint residue of burned coolant. For most visitors, it was an unpleasant stench, a reminder that they were standing inside an overworked industrial hub at the very edge of charted space. For Alex Mercer, it was simply familiar. He had spent the better part of 15 years working stations just like this one, patched together monstrosities of steel and ambition, where countless species converged to trade to labor and to scheme. His boots echoed against the docking bay floor as he pushed through the crowd, hauling a heavy equipment case behind him. The case wasn't just metal and tools, it was his livelihood, his identity, the extension of muscles that had known nothing but welding rigs, plasma torches, and the weight of machinery since he'd left Earth. His bright yellow sleeveless jumpsuit clung to his muscular frame, standard issue safety wear for contract workers. Sweat beaded along his brow, rolling down the ridges of a face carved by years of grit and firelight. The docking bay was chaos incarnate. Devarians with 6 limbs scuttled past him on urgent errands, their chittering voices colliding with the guttural tones of larger reptilian traders. A cluster of insectoid porters carried stacked crates labeled in a dozen alien languages, each glowing faintly with biohazard markers. Somewhere above, a public announcement system crackled with orders and warnings, almost drowned out by the constant hiss of pressure seals and the clang of magnetic locks. Nexus was alive in the way only a station could be, loud, grimy, and perpetually on the brink of collapse. "Fucking hell," Alex muttered, when a Devarian nearly knocked the case from his grip. He caught it before it toppled, glaring at the creature, but the alien simply chittered an apology and scuttled on. Alex straightened, adjusting the case against his shoulder with practiced ease. He was tired already. 3 hours of bureaucratic waiting for clearance, another hour navigating docking delays, and still no progress on the actual reason he was here. He was supposed to be fixing a ruptured coolant system in Sector 7, a job that sounded simple enough, until one remembered that coolant failures on an industrial energy facility could ignite chain reactions nasty enough to light up the entire rim. "No pressure." A monotone voice interrupted his thoughts. "Human Mercer, your clearance has been processed." Alex turned. The speaker was a Tellian administrator, a spindly creature whose translucent skin revealed the slow pulse of organs beneath. They held out an access chip in a trembling hand. "About damn time," Alex grumbled, snatching the chip. "I've been waiting for hours." "Apologies for the delay," the Tellian replied, its voice like vibrating glass. "There have been incidents. Additional security protocols are required." "Incidents?" Alex raised an eyebrow. "Nothing that concerns a contract, welder," the administrator said quickly. "Sector 7, Level 12, your assistant is already on site." Assistant Alex blinked. Nobody had mentioned that part, but the Tellian was already gliding away, eager to avoid further questioning. He pocketed the chip and tightened his grip on the case. Didn't matter, he'd worked with strangers before. Resources were stretched thin across the rim. It wasn't unusual to be paired up with whoever the station could spare. He just hoped the assistant wasn't some useless apprentice who would get in his way. The walk to Sector 7 was a study in contrasts. Nexus's main concourse gleamed with commercial prosperity, storefronts, blaring hollow ads, neon lights, bouncing off polished alloy floors, and a constant stream of species haggling for trinkets and trade. But the deeper Alex went, the shinier facade peeled away. Clean plating gave way to rust-streaked walls, conduits exposed like veins and warning signs, in 17 different languages plastered across bulkheads. The hum of engines grew louder, joined by the rhythmic hiss of steam from ruptured pipes. By the time he reached Level 12, the air was thicker, humid with condensation and tainted by the acrid bite of industrial coolant. It smelled like danger waiting to happen. Alex slowed his pace instincts sharp. He had been in enough hazardous zones to know when a place was seconds from going critical. The lighting was dim, reduced to red-tinted emergency strips that painted the corridor in a hellish glow. His boots splashed in shallow puddles of condensation as he turned a corner into the maintenance bay. A single figure stood near a junction valve clad in the same yellow jumpsuit as him, hood pulled low. They were bent over a control panel, tools already in hand. "You, my assistant," Alex called, setting his equipment down with a thud. The figure straightened slightly, but the hood stayed low, shadowing their face. "Yes, I've isolated the primary rupture point." The voice was muffled, professional, and oddly neutral, neither clearly male nor female, neither wholly human nor distinctly alien. Alex frowned but nodded. "Good, let's get to it then." "Name's Alex." Lima, came the reply. Lima, short, efficient, without ceremony. He liked that. Most station techs introduced themselves with long-winded clan titles and honorifics. Whoever this was, at least they seemed focused on the job. They worked in silence, at first the only sounds the hiss of welding torches and the clang of tools against metal. Alex appreciated competence, and Lima had it in spades. Their hands moved with practiced ease, calibrating pressure gauges, sealing microfractures, and adjusting circuit relays as if they'd been born to it. Still, something nagged at Alex. The way Lima moved, precise, deliberate, felt different from the average maintenance worker. There was no hesitation, no fumbling, no wasted motion. Whoever was under that hood wasn't just competent, they were experienced. When he extended a hand for the plasma cutter, their fingers brushed. Warmth. Not the calloused roughness of a laborer, but the soft, almost delicate touch of someone who hadn't spent their life crawling through ductwork. It was a small detail, but Alex's instincts cataloged it instantly. "This junction's completely shot," he muttered, examining the warped metal. "I've already calibrated the fabricator," Lima said. Alex glanced at them, impressed despite himself. "Efficient. I like it." But even as he spoke, a flicker of curiosity sparked inside him. Who exactly was this hooded assistant? And why did it feel like their presence here was more than coincident? The maintenance bay was hot, a kind of heat that seeped into clothing and clung to skin. Alex wiped sweat from his brow, muttering under his breath as sparks cascaded from the plasma torch in his hand. Lima stood a short distance away, working on the valve housing with calm precision, their hood still concealing their features. He tried not to think about it, but he couldn't help noticing how unusual this whole setup felt. Assistants weren't uncommon on major repair jobs, but they were rarely so silent. Most chatterboxes couldn't go 2 minutes without complaining about pay, about shifts, about the working conditions. Lima just worked. No wasted words, no wasted movement. That kind of discipline didn't come from the usual crew of contract laborers. "Hand me the stabilizer clamp," Alex said, extending his hand without looking up. The tool was placed neatly in his palm, their fingers brushing again. Warm. Too warm. He glanced at Lima, catching only the faint curve of a chin beneath the hood. Their posture was confident, almost proud. "You've done this before," he observed. A pause. "Yes," he smirked. "You're not much for conversation, are you?" Another pause. "Work comes first." That earned a quiet chuckle from Alex. Fair enough, he respected professionalism. Still, the curiosity gnawed at him. Who the hell was this partner? An hour passed in near silence. Pipes hissed, sparks flew, and the hum of heavy machinery vibrated through the deck. Every so often, Alex caught Lima watching him. Not openly, but enough for him to feel the weight of their gaze before they looked away. He was tightening the final coupling when it happened. A burst of sparks leapt from the plasma torch, arcing dangerously close to Lima. "Shit, watch out," Alex barked. Startled, Lima jerked backward. The hood slipped, loose, falling away from their head. Alex turned, ready to check for injuries, then froze. For a heartbeat, the world around him vanished. The steam, the flickering lights, the acrid coolant smell, all of it faded into the background. Because standing before him was no ordinary worker. Her skin glowed a soft, luminous blue, smooth as polished stone, yet faintly radiant under the emergency lights. Silver hair cascaded over her shoulders, shimmering like molten metal as it caught the glow of the sparks. Her features were delicate but sharp, a balance of familiar humanoid lines and exotic alien grace. And her eyes, deep almond-shaped, the color of a midnight sea, regarded him with an intensity that made his chest tighten. The jumpsuit she wore, identical to his, fit differently on her form. On Alex, it was a utilitarian second skin stretched across muscle. On her, it hugged curves with disarming elegance, the front zipper teasing just enough to show the graceful slope of a collarbone. Alex's mouth went dry. He almost dropped the plasma torch. Holy! He caught himself, but the expletive slipped anyway. I thought you were just another alien tech. Her lips curved into a smile, faintly amused. And I didn't expect to meet such an interesting human man here. The melodic quality of her voice was clearer now without the muffling hood. There was an accent. He couldn't place a rhythm that suggested refinement. Alex forced himself to swallow, trying to focus on her face and not the way the emergency lighting gleamed against the sheen of moisture on her skin. You're not what I expected in a maintenance assistant, disappointed she asked, tilting her head with a teasing lilt. Not even slightly, he said, managing a grin despite his hammering heartbeat. They stood there for a moment's silence, stretching between them. For Alex, it felt like something had shifted in the very air, a magnetic pull that had nothing to do with the machinery humming around them. Finally, he shook himself, forcing his thoughts back to the task at hand. So, Lima, what's someone like you doing in the bowels of this rust bucket? Don't tell me this is your dream job. She moved gracefully past him, her scent brushing against his senses, something floral exotic and utterly out of place in the industrial stink of coolant and ozone. She examined a control panel with the same calm precision as before, though a playful glint lingered in her eyes. Perhaps I enjoy getting my hands dirty, she replied. Not all of us were born for sterile upper decks. Alex chuckled, shaking his head. Fair enough, though something tells me there's more to your story. As there is to yours, she countered smoothly, stepping closer under the guise of checking his welding seam. Her proximity sent a jolt of awareness through him, a heat that had nothing to do with the failing environmental controls. He cleared his throat, forcing himself to concentrate on the pipe. The pay's good. I go where the work takes me. A wanderer, she murmured, her voice dropping to a near whisper. I find that intriguing. Their eyes met. For a brief electric moment, everything else vanished again. The hissing pipes, the flickering lights, the creak of stressed metal. It was just them, caught in a pull that defied reason. Then her gaze flicked past him and her expression shifted. She moved toward a junction box, her movement suddenly sharper, more focused. What is it? Alex asked, following. This connection sequence is wrong. She pointed at a series of wires rerouted in an illogical pattern. Someone's been tampering with the system. Alex frowned, leaning in. You're right, that's no accident. Someone crossed these deliberately. He looked at her sharply. How'd you spot that so fast? For the first time, she hesitated. Just for a second. I've worked on similar systems before. The pattern stands out. Alex's instincts prickled. He'd learned to trust those instincts. Lima was hiding something. Convenient, he thought grimly, that she just happened to be assigned here today. As if reading his suspicion, Lima stepped closer until they were nearly chest to chest. Perhaps you should be asking why you were called and specifically human. The air between them thickened with tension. Suspicion warred with attraction, each sharpening the other. Alex tried to keep his voice steady. I go where I'm sent, but I'm starting to wonder if this job's more than a simple repair. Her eyes narrowed, the blue depths darkening. There's nothing simple about this station, or the people who run it. Before Alex could respond, the lights flickered violently. For a few heartbeats, darkness swallowed them. Then the emergency systems kicked in, bathing the bay in dim red glow. That shouldn't happen, Alex muttered. Not unless the backups were tampered with too, Lima said grimly. They exchanged a look, an unspoken acknowledgement that they were standing in the middle of something dangerous, something deliberate. But underneath that, Alex felt something else thrumming between them. Curiosity, attraction, and perhaps, just perhaps, trust beginning to form. The emergency lights pulsed, red painting everything in the maintenance bay with a hellish glow. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes, fogging the air with acrid coolant. The whole place looked like it might come apart at the seams. Alex adjusted his grip on the plasma torch, eyes flicking from the failing system to Lima. She was crouched near the junction box, pale blue fingers moving quickly over the wiring, silver hair, spilling like liquid light across her shoulder. She looked entirely out of place in this grimy underbelly of the station, too poised, too graceful, and too damn beautiful. He tore his gaze away, forcing himself to focus. This whole system's a mess. We'll need to fabricate a replacement section. Think you can manage the calibrations while I cut this piece out? She didn't even look up, already working on it. Of course she was. Efficient, competent, maybe too competent. Alex had worked with hundreds of techs over the years. Some were good, a few were brilliant. But Lima wasn't just good at this, she was professional in a way that screamed training. Specialized training. As he set to work in with the cutter, sparks erupted in a brilliant cascade. They danced across the air, scattering like tiny stars before fading into the steam. One stray arc snapped dangerously close to Lima, who flinched instinctively. Alex cursed, angling the cutter away. Sorry, didn't mean to fry you. Her lips quirked faintly. I'll survive. Something about the calm in her voice made Alex shake his head with a wry smile. She wasn't rattled, not really. She'd seen worse. They worked in tandem, each movement complementing the other. The silence stretched on, broken only by the hiss of tools and the occasional murmur of technical jargon. Yet beneath the surface, a current thrummed. The kind of awareness that made Alex hyper-conscious of her nearness, the warmth of her body when she leaned past him, the scent of her skin that cut through the chemical stench of coolant, the way her eyes flicked to his when she thought he wasn't looking. At one point, he extended a hand for a stabilizer clamp. She passed it without hesitation. Their fingers brushed again. He should have ignored it, but he couldn't. Her touch lingered in his memory, soft and warm, utterly unlike any maintenance worker's calloused grip. Strange, he said quietly, half to himself. What as she asked, eyes on the tool she was calibrating? Your hands. Too soft for someone crawling through ducts and patching ruptures. That earned him a glance, sharp, assessing. Maybe I moisturized, she deadpanned. Alex barked a laugh, the sound echoing through the chamber. He hadn't expected humor, and it caught him off guard. Right, that must be it. But even as the joke hung between them, his suspicion deepened. Whoever Lima was, she wasn't just some technician thrown at a broken coolant system. She was hiding something. The fabricated pipe section locked into place with a satisfying hiss. Alex sealed the joint with a steady hand, muscles flexing under the jumpsuit as he guided the torch. Lima stepped closer, ostensibly to inspect his weld. Her proximity was almost unbearable, the brush of her shoulder against his, the whisper of her breath as she leaned in. You're skilled, she said softly. Years of practice. He tried to sound casual, but his voice came out rougher than intended. She tilted her head, studying him. And yet you notice sabotage patterns most welders wouldn't. You fight like someone trained. You're observant, cautious, not the traits of a man who only fixes broken pipes. Alex stiffened. And you spot sabotage faster than I did. What does that make you? Their eyes locked. Suspicion clashed with something hotter, sharper. Neither spoke for a long moment. Finally, Lima stepped back, breaking the tension with a small smile. Perhaps we both have our secrets. Before Alex could answer, the station shuddered violently. The floor lurched beneath their feet, throwing him against the wall. Warning klaxons blared, red lights strobing faster. Great, Alex muttered. What now? Secondary systems, Lima said grimly, scanning the flickering readouts. They're failing. On their own, she shook her head. No, someone's sabotaging them. The word hung between them like a blade. Sabotage. Not malfunction. Not accident. Deliberate. Alex's gut twisted. He'd seen it before, quiet jobs that suddenly spiraled into something bigger, darker. He didn't like where this was going. We need to stabilize this before the whole sector cooks us alive, he said, forcing himself into action. Together, they threw themselves into the work. Steam hissed around them, the temperature rising steadily. Sweat slicked Alex's skin, making the jumpsuit cling even tighter to his body. He caught Lima glancing at him, once her eyes lingering on the line of his shoulders, the strength in his arms, as he wrestled a stubborn valve into place. The air between them thickened with more than heat. When the immediate crisis eased, Alex leaned against the bulkhead, catching his breath. Lima stood close, her chest rising and falling. Silver hair plastered to her skin with moisture. Their eyes met again and something snapped. He didn't think. He just moved. Their lips crashed together in a kiss that was electric, literally. A static charge snapped between them, intensifying the sensation. Lima gasped against his mouth, then melted into him, her fingers tangling in his short brown hair. Alex's hand slid to the small of her back, pulling her closer, while the other cupped her cheek. The rational part of his brain screamed warning stranger possible enemy, definitely hiding something. But his body didn't care. Every nerve lit up, every instinct told him to hold her tighter, to taste more of her. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. That was, Lima began. Unexpected, Alex finished, still holding her close. The blaring of distant alarms intruded, dragging them back to reality. Lima's expression hardened, though she didn't step away from his embrace. "We need to fix this system before it fails completely," she said, voice steadier than her racing pulse. "And then we need to talk. Honestly." "Agreed," Alex said, reluctantly letting her go. They dove back into the work, but now every glance, every brush of fingers over tools carried a new charge. Their connection was undeniable, but so was the weight of secrets hanging between them. And beneath it all, Alex felt a creeping certainty whatever was happening on Nexus Station was far bigger than a coolant rupture. And somehow he and Lima were right in the middle of it. The alarm subsided to a low, steady wail that reverberated through the bulkheads like a heartbeat. The coolant leak was stabilized for now, but the maintenance base still felt like a pressure cooker. Pipes hissed with residual steam, warning lights flickered across panels, and the air reeked of scorched metal. Alex leaned against a railing, wiping sweat from his brow, with a gloved hand. Lima stood opposite him, her luminous skin glowing faintly in the red emergency lights, her silver hair plastered to her neck. They were both breathing hard, but her eyes never wavered. "You're not telling me the whole story," Alex said at last, voice low and edged. Her lips curved into a faint smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Neither are you." Fair point. But Alex wasn't in the mood for games. That sabotage pattern, the backup failure, the wiring reroutes. This isn't some overworked station breaking down. Somebody's trying to blow this place. Lima nodded, one solemn yes. "So why the hell didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I didn't know if I could trust you." That stung, though Alex supposed it was fair. They had known each other for less than a day. Trust wasn't exactly standard issue on the rim. Still, there had been that kiss, that moment where the universe shrank to just them. He wanted to believe that meant something. "Then start. Now," he said firmly. "Who are you really?" Lima hesitated, the glow in her eyes dimming as if weighed down by secrets. "I can't say. Not yet. But I can tell you this: what's happening here is deliberate. Someone has been sabotaging key systems across Nexus for weeks. My role is to find out who." Alex crossed his arms. "Investigator, then. You could call it that. Undercover disguised as a maintenance tech." She arched a brow. "Convenient, isn't it?" Alex exhaled through his nose, half a laugh, half frustration. "Yeah, convenient." Before he could press further, the station trembled violently. The deck pitched under their boots, sending sparks from the ceiling conduits. A klaxon blared, "Containment breach, Sector 9, containment breach." "That's nowhere near us," Alex said, scanning the readouts. "No," Lima replied grimly, "but it's the third breach today." Their eyes met. Sabotage. They packed up quickly, Alex hoisting his equipment case while Lima secured her tools. The corridors outside were nearly deserted, most workers evacuated by security protocols. The further they went, the more decrepit the station became. Darkened passageways, exposed conduits, and warning glyphs scrawled across the walls in languages Alex couldn't read. "This isn't random," Lima murmured as they moved. "The failures are coordinated. Someone's destabilizing the entire grid piece by piece." "Any idea who?" Alex asked. "Too many suspects," she said. "Criminal syndicates, rival corporations, extremist factions. Out here, everyone has an agenda." Alex grunted. "Sounds like fun." They rounded a corner into a service corridor, lit only by dim red strips. Lima froze, holding out a hand to stop him. Ahead, a maintenance panel hung open, wires spilling out like entrails. The configuration was all wrong, twisted into deliberate patterns. "Sabotage," Alex muttered. "More than that," Lima whispered. "It's a trigger." Even as she said it, the panel sparked violently. A shudder rippled through the corridor as systems powered down. Emergency seals slammed shut at both ends, trapping them inside. "Perfect," Alex growled. The air grew heavy, humid. The environmental controls were shutting down. Heat pressed in like a physical weight. "We'll suffocate if we don't override this," Lima said. Alex dropped his case, pulling out a diagnostic rig. "Then let's get to work." They worked side by side, sweat dripping as the temperature rose. Their hands brushed over tools, their shoulders bumped as they crowded into the narrow space. The proximity was maddening, every accidental touch sparking memory of the kiss they had shared. But Alex forced himself to focus. He routed power through auxiliary relays, bypassing the sabotage wiring. Lima recalibrated coolant flow to prevent a meltdown. Together, they forced the system back online. With a hiss, the seals at either end of the corridor released. Cool air rushed in, banishing the suffocating heat. "Nice work," Alex said, giving her a crooked grin. Her lips curved in answer, likewise. For a moment, it felt almost like camaraderie, almost normal. Then Alex's instincts flared. Something was wrong. "Quiet," he whispered. From the shadows beyond the corridor came a metallic whirring, the sound of drones, security drones, and they were coming fast. They bolted, sprinting down half-lit corridors. The drones' red optics glowed in the dark as they gave chase, weapons bristling. Shots sizzled past them, scorching the bulkheads. "This way," Alex shouted, leading Lima through a maze of side passages. He'd worked enough stations to know their layouts, and his memory for schematics was near photographic. They dove through a maintenance hatch into a narrow service tunnel barely wide enough to crawl. Lima squeezed past him, her curves brushing against him in the confined space. He tried to focus on the danger, not the view. Behind them, the drones clattered closer. One squeezed into the tunnel, its limbs scraping the walls. "Keep moving," Alex yelled, swinging his torch around to fire a cutting arc. Sparks showered the cramped space, and the drone shrieked as metal parted. Its optics went dark, collapsing in a sparking heap. They crawled until their arms burned, until the tunnel spat them out into a maintenance hub no larger than a storage closet. They collapsed against opposite walls, gasping. Lima's skin glowed faintly in the dim light, sweat making the jumpsuit cling provocatively. Her eyes found his, filled with adrenaline and something else, something softer. "You saved me," she said quietly. He gave a tired grin. Seemed like the right thing to do. Silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken thoughts. Then she crossed the space, kneeling before him. "You're not just a welder." Alex met her gaze steadily. "And you're not just a tech." Her lips curved faintly. "Secrets on top of secrets." "Yeah," he said, voice low. "But out here, maybe that's all we've got." The tension was unbearable, and then it broke. She kissed him again, urgent and fierce, pulling him close. He responded in kind hands, exploring the contours of her body through the thin jumpsuit. The world outside, the alarms, the sabotage, the danger fell away. All that existed was heat touch and the unspoken truth neither of them could deny. When they finally pulled apart, breathless, Alex rested his forehead against hers. "This is crazy." Undoubtedly, she agreed, but her lips still sought his. They lay tangled on the deck plates afterward, bodies slick with sweat, hearts pounding in sync. For a brief, impossible moment, the danger felt far away. Then the station shook again. A deep boom echoed through the structure, dust sifting from the ceiling. Alex sat up sharply. That wasn't a coolant leak. No, Lima said, already pulling her jumpsuit back into place. Her expression was grim. That was an explosion. They scrambled to the hub's terminal, pulling up a schematic. Red alerts flashed across multiple sectors. One explosion in cargo, another near environmental controls. Alex's jaw tightened. Someone's accelerating their plan. Lima's hands danced across the keys. "Look here." She highlighted multiple blinking red points across the station map. "These aren't random. They're placed at strategic junctions. If they all detonate together, the whole station goes critical," Alex finished. Her gaze met his, grim and unflinching. "And with the human diplomatic ship Horizon on approach, it will look like humans caused it." Alex swore under his breath. "An engineered disaster. Blame us, ignite a war." Exactly. For a long moment, neither spoke. The enormity of it pressed down like gravity. Finally, Alex slammed the terminal shut. "Then we stop it. Whoever's behind this, whatever it takes, we stop it." Lima's lips curved faintly, admiration in her eyes. "You humans, always so certain you can beat impossible odds." He shrugged, shouldering his case again. "Someone's got to try." And together they stepped back into the chaos of Nexus Station, two strangers bound by secret's desire and a mission far greater than either had bargained for. The corridors of Nexus Station reverberated with alarm sirens. Red lights flashed in staccato rhythm, casting sharp shadows across the deck plating. Somewhere distant explosions thudded like the heartbeat of a dying giant. The chaos was spreading. Alex and Lima ran side by side, dodging pipes and bulkheads as the station shuddered around them. Behind them, the faint whirring of drones echoed like hunting dogs on the trail. "They're not going to stop," Lima said between breaths. "Then we keep moving," Alex replied grimly. "I know these layouts. Maintenance shafts ahead." They reached an intersection only for armored figures to emerge from both sides. Security drones weren't the only hunters. Now came the Vex themselves, tall insectoid warriors with gleaming carapaces, weapons glowing faintly in the dim light. Their mandibles clicked in eerie unison as they advanced. Lima's eyes widened. "They've cut us off." Alex's mind raced. They couldn't fight them all. Not here. Not now. "Run!" he shouted, shoving Lima toward a narrow hatchway. But he didn't follow. Instead, he turned to face the Vex. Lima froze, horror flashing across her face. "Alec, go!" His voice was sharp, commanding. "You're faster. You can warn the others. I'll buy you time." Her chest tightened. "I won't leave you." "You will," he snapped. Then softer, "Trust me. This isn't the first time I've done this." The Vex surged forward. Alex charged into them with reckless abandon, slamming his case into one's thorax and following with a brutal punch. The insectoid staggered back, hissing. Another swung its weapon. Alex ducked, driving his shoulder into its abdomen. Pain flared through his own ribs, but he held firm. Lima hesitated for one agonizing second. Then with a last desperate glance, she bolted through the hatchway, vanishing into the shadows. The fight was brutal and short. Alex was strong-trained, but the Vex were armored and numerous. One caught him with the butt of its weapon, sending pain exploding through his shoulder. Another twisted his arms behind him, forcing him to his knees. Still he fought. Every second mattered. Every second bought Lima a chance. When the restraints finally locked around his wrists, his lip was split, his breath ragged, but his eyes burned with defiance. "Brave but foolish human one," Vex rasped, mandibles grinding. Alex spat blood. "Story of my life." They dragged him through the corridors, making no attempt to hide their prisoner. His mind raced, cataloging every turn, every sector they passed, not toward the Coalition's hidden command center, toward Central Security. That was interesting. So maybe not all Vex were in on the conspiracy. That at least gave him a sliver of hope. The interrogation room was sterile. A table bolted to the floor, two uncomfortable chairs, and walls as blank as a tomb. Alex sat cuffed, bruised, but unbroken. When the door slid open, a new figure entered. Taller, older carapace cracked with the scars of battles past. His insignia marked him as a commander. "I am Commander Krell," the Vex announced, voice deep and resonant. "You are identified as Alexander Mercer, human contract welder. You are accused of sabotage and tampering with station systems." Alex barked a laugh that scraped his raw throat. "That's rich, considering your coalition is rigging this station to blow in the Horizon docks." Krell's mandibles twitched. Surprise, annoyance, hard to tell. "Explain," the commander demanded. Alex leaned forward as far as the restraints allowed. "The Vex coalition has planted explosives. They're going to detonate them when the human diplomatic vessel arrives. Make it look like humans are responsible. Start a war." Krell's compound eyes glittered. "The coalition is political, not terrorists. Tell that to the extremists operating out of the abandoned comms room on level 14, section C." Alex shot back. "I saw it myself. Schematics, explosives, the works. Check it if you don't believe me." The commander studied him in silence. Alex held his gaze, refusing to flinch. "And the Ari female with you?" Krell asked at last. Alex stiffened. So they had noticed her. "She's trying to reach the secondary control room to warn the Horizon. You should be helping her, not wasting time with me." "The Ari are diplomats, not warriors," Krell said dryly. "Why would one risk herself for humans?" Images of Lima flooded Alex's mind, the determination in her eyes, the heat of her kiss, the way she had refused to abandon him until he forced her to. "Maybe she understands something your coalition doesn't," he said fiercely. "That species doesn't define character." The commander's mandibles clicked in something like amusement. A human philosophy, idealistic, naive. "Is preventing mass murder naive?" Alex shot back. "The Horizon carries 300 diplomats and crew. This station houses thousands more. Are you willing to sacrifice them all because you won't even investigate?" Krell was silent for a long moment. Then he tapped something on his wrist communicator. "Security team to level 14, section C, full tactical sweep." Hope flared in Alex's chest, though he forced his face neutral. "If your information proves accurate," Krell said, "rising your situation may improve. If not, interfering with station security carries severe penalties." "Just hurry," Alex urged. "Docking's been moved up." When the commander left, Alex sagged in his restraints. Pain throbbed through his shoulder, his lip ached, and his ribs screamed with every breath. But none of it mattered. All he could think of was Lima. Was she safe? Did she make it? He had never expected to care this much this quickly. Yet the thought of her being caught, or worse, was unbearable. Meanwhile, Lima was very much alive. She crouched in the shadows of a maintenance shaft, sweat dripping from her brow. Her breath came fast, not only from the exertion of running, but from the weight of choices pressing down on her. She should have kept moving, should have abandoned him when the Vex closed in. That would have been logical, pragmatic. But logic had cracked the moment Alex shoved her towards safety. His eyes, brown and defiant, stubborn, as only a human could be, had seared into her. "Trust me," he had said, and against her better judgment, she had. Now she owed him. Lima pulled out her wrist communicator, frowning when only static greeted her. The jamming was still active. She was cut off, alone, but not helpless. She slipped into the shadows, moving with deliberate grace. Unlike Alex, she wasn't built for brute strength. Her skills lay elsewhere: infiltration, analysis, diplomacy. Skills that now had to be turned to survival. She ducked into a storage depot, eyes scanning the room. Tools, equipment, discarded uniforms. Perfect. She grabbed a case of precision tools, strapping it across her back. If she was going to disable explosives or prove Alex's warnings true, she'd need them. As she slipped out, voices echoed down the corridor. Harsh, chittering tones. Vex extremists. Lima pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't supposed to be here running from armed pursuers in the guts of a failing station. But then again, she wasn't supposed to meet a human who made her feel alive in ways she'd long forgotten. She tightened her grip on the tool case. Whatever happened, she would not let his sacrifice be in vain. Back in the interrogation room, Alex's restraints finally clicked open. A junior officer entered, mandibles clicking nervously. "Commander Krell orders your presence," the insectoid announced. "Guess you found something," Alex said, rising stiffly. The officer didn't reply, but his agitation told Alex everything. As they hurried through the corridors, emergency klaxons blared louder. A computerized voice repeated, "Security alert. This is not a drill." Alex's heart pounded. They'd found explosives. His gamble had paid off. But the real question remained, could they stop them all before Horizon docked? And more important to him than any diplomatic summit, was Lima still alive to fight beside him? The command center was a storm of motion. Vex security officers scuttled between hollow displays, their mandibles clacking as data streamed in. Emergency alerts blinked across every screen, red lines spiderwebbing the schematics of Nexus Station. Alex stood in the middle of it all, still bruised from his interrogation, but with fire in his eyes. Commander Krell loomed nearby, issuing rapid orders to his subordinates. "Your information was correct," Human Krell said without preamble. "We've located 3 explosive devices so far, but there are more. According to this schematic, at least 3 remain, including one near the main docking bay." Alex's chest tightened. "The Horizon, how long until they dock?" 20 minutes, Krell replied. "Then we don't have time for debate," Alex snapped. "You need me out there. I already disabled 1 device. I can do it again." The commander studied him, multifaceted eyes glittering. "Very well. You will accompany Tactical Team 3 to the docking bay. But hear me, human, if this is deception, I will see you executed myself." "Fair enough," Alex said, already striding toward the waiting squad. The lift groaned as it descended, carrying Alex and 4 armored Vex soldiers toward the station's main docking level. The air vibrated with tension, every second ticking closer to catastrophe. Officer Tark, the team leader, glanced at Alex with evident suspicion. "The device is near the environmental control junction. According to the schematic, detonation would rupture the atmospheric containment field. Everyone in the bay would die, perhaps half the station." Sounds like your coalition isn't messing around, Alex muttered. The doors hissed open onto a scene of barely controlled chaos. Evacuation teams herded civilians toward exits, while security patrols swept the cavernous docking bay. Beyond the massive viewport, the horizon loomed closer, its sleek hull gleaming against the starfield. Alex swallowed hard. They had less than 20 minutes to stop this. Over here, a Vex officer called, pointing to a maintenance panel near the main airlock controls. Alex knelt, prying the cover open. HFY. His stomach dropped. Inside was a device similar to the one he had disabled before, but far more complex. Extra wiring layered detonators, anti-tamper circuits. This one's different, he warned. If I cut it wrong, it blows. Can you disarm it, Tark asked. Maybe, Alex admitted. But I need more than this cheap kit you gave me. A familiar voice came from behind him. Would these help? Alex spun around. Lima. Her silver hair was disheveled, her blue skin streaked with grime, her jumpsuit torn at the shoulder. But to Alex, she had never looked more radiant. She carried a case of precision tools, her expression fierce and determined. Lima, he breathed relief flooding through him. He grabbed her in a tight embrace before he could stop himself. I thought they'd caught you. Nearly did, she admitted, pulling back just enough to meet his gaze. But I wasn't going to let them win. Not while you were still fighting. The Vex officers exchanged glances, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. Tark spoke dryly. Then perhaps you should assist him. Ari. Together, Alex and Lima knelt by the device. Their hands moved in perfect sync, passing tools, isolating circuits, recalibrating triggers. It was as if they had worked together for years rather than hours. Where'd you learn this? Lima asked quietly. Special Forces. Alex admitted, fingers steady on a micro cutter. Before I picked up welding. Figured it was better to build than to blow things up. A smile tugged at her lips, a man of hidden depths. Says the mysterious diplomat disguised as a grease monkey, he shot back with a grin. The device beeped sharply, drawing their attention. Almost there, Alex murmured. One wrong move and we're atoms. Lima handed him a cutter, their fingers brushing. The contact sparked that familiar jolt, the electric pull that had haunted him since the moment she dropped her hood. With a final delicate snip, the device powered down. Alex exhaled, hard tension draining from his shoulders. That's one more down, Tark said briskly. 2 remain. But relief was short-lived. Lima's communicator crackled to life. Through the static came a garbled message. Coalition. Pinned down. Firefight. Central hub. Her face paled. The last device. They're defending it. Of course they are, Alex muttered grimly. That's where the jamming device is too, isn't it? Yes, Lima said. They're protecting both. Tark's mandibles clicked. We cannot breach their position without heavy losses. Alex's jaw tightened. Then I'll do it. They reached the central hub amid chaos. Gunfire crackled across the vast chamber. Vex security pinned down behind overturned barricades. Across the atrium, coalition extremists held their ground around a cylindrical jamming device pulsing with energy. Behind it, the faint blink of another explosive glowed like a death sentence. Alex spotted silver hair among the defenders. Lima crouched beside Tark. She looked up, relief flashing across her face when she saw him. Alex, she called. He waved back. That device, how much time do we have? 7 minutes, she shouted. Too little. Before he could respond, Lima broke cover. What the hell are you doing? Tark barked. She didn't answer. She sprinted across the atrium, dodging fire, sliding into a maintenance shaft on the far wall. Alex swore violently. She's going to flank them, he realized. The firefight intensified. Alex fired back with a borrowed weapon, keeping the extremists distracted. Every second felt like a lifetime. Then movement above caught his eye. Lima emerged from a conduit directly over the jamming device. She clung to a pipe poised like a shadow. No, Alex whispered. He knew what she intended. Their eyes met across the distance. She smiled, small, fierce, heartbreakingly beautiful. Then she dropped. She landed on the jamming device and plunged a power coupling straight into its control panel. The machine sparked violently, overloading in a controlled explosion. Energy flared and the device died in a shower of sparks. The extremists whirled, but it was too late. Communications restored the station. AI blared. All channels open. The Horizon's captain's voice cut through the comm. This is Captain Reeves, docking aborted, moving to safe distance. Relief crashed over Alex. It worked. She'd done it. But Lima was sprawled on the deck, a gash bleeding silver across her forehead. Lima Alex broke cover, sprinting to her side. He dragged her behind a pillar as reinforcements surged into the chamber. The extremists were overwhelmed within minutes, their last stand crushed beneath a tide of armored security. "You crazy, beautiful alien," Alex muttered, pressing a hand to her wound. "You did it." Her eyes fluttered open, dazed but focused. "Did it work?" Alex grinned fiercely. "Yeah, you saved us all." Her lips curved faintly, and she slumped against him, exhaustion claiming her. The battle was won, but the cost lingered. Hours later, Alex stood outside the medical bay, shoulder bandaged, watching through the glass as healers worked on Lima. Her skin glowed faintly under the sterile lights, her breathing steady but shallow. Commander Krell approached his mandibles, clicking softly. "Your information was accurate. The Coalition's plot has been dismantled. The horizon is safe." "Good," Alex said flatly. "You fought with courage," Krell continued. "Unusual for a contract worker." Alex met his gaze evenly. "I told you, I'm more than I look." The commander tilted his head as though studying him anew. Then he inclined it in something almost like respect. "Perhaps humans are more than they appear." With that, Krell departed, leaving Alex alone with his thoughts. Through the glass, Lima stirred, her eyes open, locking onto his. Even across the barrier, the connection sparked undeniable. Alex pressed his palm against the glass. She mirrored the gesture, her fingers glowing faintly blue against his. They didn't need words. For now, they had survived. For now, they had won. 3 days later, Nexus Station still bore the scars of battle. Whole sectors were sealed off for repair, their corridors warped and scorched from sabotage blasts. Engineers swarmed like ants across the outer hall, patching ruptures while drones carted away debris. The air inside remained tinged with smoke and coolant, but life went on. It always did. Stations like Nexus never stopped moving. Alex stood at a viewport overlooking the dockyards, arms crossed loosely over his chest. Beyond the glass, the diplomatic vessel Horizon gleamed against the starfield, a silver arrow resting quietly after narrowly escaping disaster. Repair crews worked around its flanks while smaller shuttles darted between station and ship like minnows. He exhaled slowly. The weight of it all pressed against him heavier than any welder's case he'd ever carried. If Lima hadn't destroyed the jamming device, if he hadn't bluffed Krell into sending troops, if either of them had hesitated, Horizon would be debris by now. The galaxy might already be spiraling into war. Deep thoughts. The voice behind him was soft, familiar, threaded with amusement. Arms slipped around his waist, slender but strong. He didn't need to turn to know. "Just appreciating the view," Alex said with a faint smile covering her hands with his. Lima pressed against his back, her silver hair brushing his neck, the warmth of her blue skin grounding him. When he did turn, he took in the sight fully. She was radiant. Her injuries had been healed by airy medics who arrived with the diplomatic contingent. Gone was the grease-stained jumpsuit. In its place flowed a garment of pale silk that shimmered like moonlight against her skin. Patterns of silver traced across the fabric, echoing the faint luminescence of her complexion. She looked every inch the diplomat she truly was. And yet to Alex, she was still the woman who had crawled through ducts with him, who had laughed at danger, who had kissed him in a cramped hub with alarms screaming in the distance. "You're staring," she teased gently. "Can you blame me?" he shot back. Her laughter was soft music. "I suppose not." They stood together in companionable silence for a moment, foreheads almost touching, gazing out at the stars beyond the viewport. Then Lima's expression shifted more serious. "There's something you deserve to know. No more secrets." Alex arched a brow. "I figured as much. You're not exactly a career pipe fixer." Her lips curved faintly. "True, I am Lima Sereth of the Ari Diplomatic Corps. I was sent here undercover to assess human relations with outlying stations before the summit. I chose the role of a maintenance worker so I could see the truth of daily operations, not the rehearsed speeches of administrators." Alex absorbed this quietly. It fit. The competence, the poise, the strange mix of grace and grit. "So I fell for a diplomat," he said at last. "Does that bother you?" she asked, a trace of vulnerability in her voice. He shook his head. You saved hundreds of lives, including mine. Titles don't matter much after that. Relief softened to her features. She smiled, leaning into him. Then what about you, Alex Mercer? The welder who fights like a soldier, disarms bombs like a specialist, and stares down Vex commanders without blinking. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Former Special Forces, Human Defense Force. Did my tours burned out and walked away. Welding was supposed to be simpler, something honest. But I guess the galaxy had other ideas. She studied him with quiet intensity, her hand brushing his jaw. You hide your past, but you can't hide who you are. You were made for more than patching pipes. Maybe Alex admitted. But if more means ending up in interrogation rooms and running from drones, I'd rather pass. Her lips quirked knowingly. You don't believe that? I've seen the way your eyes light up when the odds stack against you. Humans thrive on defying the impossible. That's why you intrigue me so much. Alex chuckled softly. You've got me figured out, huh? Not yet, she murmured, brushing her lips lightly against his. But I'd like more time. Later, they sat together in a quiet lounge overlooking the repaired sectors. The hum of conversation from diplomats and workers filled the air, a reminder that Nexus, battered but alive, was moving forward. Lima sipped a cup of steaming blue liquid, her posture elegant even in relaxation. Alex leaned back with a mug of strong caf, watching her more than the room. They've offered me a position aboard Horizon, she said at last. His heart sank, though he tried not to show it. That's great. You deserve it. She turned to him, eyes sparkling. They also mentioned they need someone with structural engineering expertise for upcoming missions to the border colonies. Someone who knows welding and more. Hope flared in his chest. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying I'm not ready to say goodbye, she replied softly. Not to the human who mistook me for a worker until I pulled off my hood. Alex laughed, unable to help it. He pulled her into his arms, lifting her easily. Well, when you put it like that, how could I refuse? Their kiss sealed the promise. A promise of journeys yet to come, of battles and diplomacy, of laughter and danger, of love forged in fire and sabotage. That night, as Nexus Station hummed with renewed life, Alex lay awake in the small quarters they now shared. Lima's breathing was soft and steady beside him, her hand resting lightly on his chest. He stared at the ceiling, feeling something he hadn't felt in years: peace. Not because the galaxy was safe, it never truly was, but because for once, he wasn't facing it alone. He thought of what Krell had said about humans being more than they appeared. Maybe it was true. Maybe it wasn't just about humans at all. Maybe it was about people, any people who chose to fight, to trust, to love, despite the odds stacked against them. Alex looked at Lima, her silver hair spilling across the pillow, her luminous skin glowing faintly in the dim light. She stirred, murmuring his name in her sleep, and his heart clenched in a way he hadn't known it could. Yeah, he thought, welding had led him here. And for once, he was damn glad of it. Tomorrow they would face politics, new missions, more danger. Tomorrow the galaxy would remind them that peace was fragile and life unpredictable. But tonight, in this fragile, stolen moment, Alex Mercer was content. And as Lima shifted closer in her sleep, he knew with absolute certainty that the best decision of his life had been walking into that maintenance bay on Nexus Station, where he mistook her for a simple worker until she pulled off her hood and nothing was ever the same again.